The Next Stage program is brought to you by Heal Her Art, an art wellness program for women veterans. Sponsored by the American Legion Auxiliary Foundation, Veterans First, Arizona Commission on the Arts, and the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 62 in Peoria, Arizona. Your kit includes everything you need to get started making elegant watercolor paintings. For this class, you'll need all the supplies in your kit and a few additional supplies you have at home. During this class, you will learn how to use watercolors, space out words on paper, and paint sections of color. Lastly, I'll show you how to embellish your watercolor painting with marker. You can make this as ornate or plain as you like. Your phrases can be personal, motivational, or seasonal in content. I found watercolor sets of any price point can yield beautiful paintings. It's all in how you use the paint. Pictured here are watercolor commonly used techniques. From this chart, you'll see that wet on dry, flat wash, and graded wash are best for this project. In my opinion, there's no difference between wet on dry and flat wash. Before I begin creating, I like to know what I'm working with. We're going to quickly sample the colors to see what they look like. Grab that smaller watercolor sheet on the back side without the penciled rectangle. We're going to be testing the colors from heavy pigment to light pigment. Watercolor paint is activated with water. It's meant to be translucent in application and never meant to be thick or dry like acrylic paint. We will now sample each color. You never want the paint to be drippy, nor do you want the paint wells to be filled with water. You get water as needed. While we wait for the watercolor to dry, we can begin to draw the design. Grab that larger piece of watercolor paper and draw an 8 by 10 inch frame. That's about a half an inch from the edges of the paper. For the first design, use the whole sheet, and maybe for your second or third piece, you use half a sheet pictured here on the right. At this point, you should have some idea what phrase or sentence you'd like to use for your painting. The number of lines of text depends on the number of words. For your first painting, I recommend having 2 to 3 words per line. Generally speaking, uppercase lettering works best for this project. You'll want to lightly pencil the words in place so you can easily make adjustments. Note here the orientation. It's personal preference on whether you want horizontal or vertical presentation. Here's what we'll be painting today. Number 1 shows the pencil-drawn words. Number 2 shows how you space out the watercolor so that each section can dry before moving on to the next color. Number 3 is completed watercolor, and number 4 shows with the permanent marker. Here's a few examples of coloring options for your phrases. Monochromatic colors are colors next to each other on the color wheel. This example shows variation of blue and purple and the mixture of the two. Wet on wet is when you continue to blend colors slightly overlapping them for a smooth transition. And lastly, an option you may choose is a single color gradation. Once you have painted your phrase, you have to decide how you'll make the words pop so they are clearly legible. You've got a few options. The first example shows a basic marker line. Number 2 is an outline with watercolor. You'll want to choose a darker color if you select this option. I like this because it's continuing with the watercolor and painterly feel. Number 3 is filled with markers, shapes, and patterns as embellishments. You can see here I did use lowercase lettering, and I can tell lowercase letter A is not ideal for this activity. Both the E's are still legible. Perhaps one of your phrases uses a combination of upper and lowercase letters. Here's my example of a fun marker drawing over the letters. I look forward to seeing yours.